Hi, I'm Caira Gontinias from the Department of BS in Computer Science, Year 1, Section 1. And this is a video explaining the overview of the codes that I used in creating a basic 60 seconds timer using the Flutter language in Visual Studio Code. Now, before anything, I would just like to clarify that the codes in this video are of very basic level as I've only started studying Flutter for like almost a week. Thus, pardon in advance for any mistakes or misnamed elements in this video. Now with that out of the way, let us start. Firstly, we can see here the already made codes with the output on the right. As we can see, I run my program in a Windows application rather than an Android emulator as I failed to install one in my VS Code due to the specs limitation of my computer. It turned out that I needed to install Android Studio first in my PC as a requirement for the Android emulator to work, but unfortunately such IDE is too heavy for my PC, thus I could only resort to using Windows application. Nevertheless, I believe that the program can still run properly in an Android emulator if tested on a VS Code that has one. So there would be no changes whatsoever if tested on that, or so I sincerely hope. Anyways, we can see here that the title of our app is Timer, with it being a 60 seconds timer as I said earlier and as shown on the app bar. So what happens here is that there is a default number 60 on the center of the screen with the start and reset button below. And just like any timer, if I clicked on the start, the 60 would start on counting down until it reaches 0. So how this works is explained here on the left. Firstly, we have our main function that runs the app through its root widget material app, and inside that we have the home property calling the homepage widget. So what's being called in this homepage widget is what we have here below, the class homepage, which extends to stateful widget. So as you can see, I use the stateful widget in this app as our timer app have a changing or non-static screen. Unlike a static one, we have the numbers here observably changing once we start a command like the start button. So under the class homepage, we have here below the main properties and widget that is being shown on our actual app. It shows here the functions that is being returned as our main function from earlier runs the app. In this, we have the scaffold widget that enables the stacking of properties and widgets to be put on the graphic user interface of our app. Inside it, we have the app bar property indicating the background color of it and the text shown, which is 60 seconds timer and how it is shown. After that is the body, which contains the most important widgets in the app. In this, we have centered the column property that contains these three other widgets. So firstly, we have the text widget, which calls on to show a variable named countdown from and the text style of how it will be shown. We can see what this variable countdown from contains here above. So it says here that it is an integer named countdown from with a value of 60. This is basically the big default number 60 earlier that we saw on the center of the app. Next to that is the material button with the text start in it. So this is basically the start button that we pressed earlier. As a button, it says here that upon being pressed, it calls on a method named _start countdown. We can see the details of such method here above, just below the variable earlier. So it indicates here that under the _start countdown, we have the timer function, which is imported from Dart async, as shown here. This function enables our app to work as a timer, as its name suggests. So timer.periodic with its duration set to 1 second, meaning that whatever the command we tell this function to do, it will do so repeatedly in 1 second intervals. Such command is what we can see here below, the if-else function. It says here that if the variable countdown from is greater than 0, then its value should be subtracted by 1 every passing second as set by the duration 1 second. Else, if the variable countdown from is not greater than 0, then the timer function should be cancelled or stopped. Thus why the timer on the app stopped the moment that it reached 0. It did not go further to -1, -2, or so on, because it was set to be stopped being subtracted by 1 once it is no longer greater than 0. Lastly, our last widget is another material button, but this time with the text reset on it. Just like the start button, it is calling on a method upon being pressed. But this time it calls on a method called _reset button, which details we can see here above. So it says here that upon being called, this method would print or set the variable countdown from to a value of 60, just like its original or default value earlier. To demonstrate, if we click the button reset here, the number 0 shown will go back to 60, just like what it was earlier, thus enabling us to reset the timer and start it all over again if we so wish for it. And now with that, I've covered every main function that builds up our app named timer. That will be all for this video, and thank you for watching.